Hello, everyone. I'm Molly Phelps, social worker and community organizer here at St. Francis Episcopal Parish and Community Center. My initial plan for today was to talk about community organizing, what it looks like, and why we do it. But as I reflected on the experiences I've had with you all over the last month, I realized that what I really want to do is focus on this word community and talk about some of the blessings and challenges of being in a community with others. We toss that word around a lot, community. But how do we know what communities we belong to? How do we know how we define the communities in which we find ourselves and what makes us want to stay in those communities? In my experience, the meaning of community is multifold. First and foremost, a community is a group of people who are in relationship with one another in some sort of meaningful way. Sometimes community can be made up of a few or many smaller communities or in-groups. I use the term in-group specifically here because sometimes communities can be exclusive, whether they intend to be or not, through location or even the behaviors of the people who belong to those communities. Sometimes a community is created for a purpose. Sometimes communities happen naturally or due to the structural factors or geographical proximity around them. Sometimes they exist out of necessity. Here at St. Francis Episcopal Parish and Community Center, we have the opportunity to define community in several different ways within our midst and in the surrounding geographical area. We have the community of the parish and community center working together as one. We have the community of the staff, the community of the parishioners, and the communities of two churches that have taken on the task of becoming one. We also have the community of people who live around the church and those who travel from other communities to receive services here all over the county. An aspect of community that receives less focus but deserves significant attention is the explicit and conscious choice to exist and remain in community with others in those communities that we choose to be a part of. If you're watching this, there's a good chance that you have made a conscious choice to be part of this community in some way, whether that's through attending worship, volunteering, employment, receiving services, engaging with our content online. The choice to be and remain in community with others allows us to engage with foundational values and experiences that bind us together, not just as community members, but as people. This can be a tall order at times. In my experience, I know that I belong to a community by the way that it makes me feel to engage with it. Being a member of a community can often be an emotional experience, especially in those that we choose to be a part of. Being a member of a community can feel rewarding, fulfilling, inspiring, and can meet emotional and sometimes material needs of those involved. It also can come with tension and the potential for real challenges between people already in the community and those who are seeking to join. But why? As I like to say, anytime you get more than one person in a room, conflict and harm are unavoidable. Just as communities are systems made up of individual people, communities are also made up of the rich emotional lives of each person involved in them and of those on the outside who come into contact with the community, either with a desire to be integrated into the group or in a short-term and transactional way. We can become attached to things within our communities that make us wary of change or new people coming into our spaces and stirring things up. The ownership we feel over certain aspects of the shared experience can get in the way of recognizing the humanity in our neighbors. Conflict arises when new ideas or new challenges emerge. A small hurt can become a big harm if chipped away at over months and years and decades, where the original transgression is hardly recognizable, and instead what is left is a wealth of pain and grief and anger that sits just below the surface. Fear is another aspect of the internal emotional system of community that prevents the growth of the people in the community and the community itself. It is human nature to fear the loss of connectedness and ostracism from a group, especially if there are difficulties involved. Alienation in our society is real. We are taught from childhood that meritocracy and individualism are highly regarded, and that if we are to achieve the American dream, we must pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and forge a path forward in isolation from others. We are inundated with messages from the media and from our leaders about what makes someone a valuable member of society. Many times, these messages reinforce the status quo of whiteness, able-bodiedness, punitive measures for failure to follow the rules or to fit in the way that we're told we have to. At the heart of all of it, we are taught that differences are to be feared and that we as individuals are solely responsible for the outcomes of our lives. What an incredibly isolating way to engage with the world. These kinds of messages pose deep challenges for us as people to really be able to engage in community in a truly meaningful way. It takes effort from each person individually and the culture of a community to hold space for the undoing of these notions and how we should live our lives, what is normal, and who we should allow into our midst. Through all of this, though, each and every one of us is a person looking for meaningful connection with others, and I believe it is possible to do so in a way that fulfills the needs of everyone involved if we take the time to listen to what those needs are and evaluate our own needs and feelings and behaviors. I firmly believe that the only way to make communities stronger is to create that space to talk about those emotional lives we live under the surface, allow ourselves to be vulnerable and real with one another, unpack all the messages that we have been receiving since day one on this earth about how life is and should be, and use what we find in those conversations to guide us on our journey to be in transformative connection and community with each other, and welcome our neighbors to join us with open arms. We can be the people that we want to be and create the world that we want to live in tomorrow, today. Thanks for listening. Please feel free to reach out to me with questions or to reflect with me on your thoughts. My door is always open.